వసుధైవ కుటుంబకం.
Hi there. So it's Marcus here, History 140. I'm here to interview, if you call it an interview, I think it was a conversation. A good friend and colleague, Doris Rush. Doris is Rush, it goes down and up, doesn't it? The way Rush.
Oosh.
Oosh. It's even more oosh. Okay.
Very
So
long.
So I had the good fortune of meeting Doris just recently, really, and in terms of real time, though I think we've known one another in past lives, but we don't talk that sort of stuff, do we, at university? Doris and I have a lot of fun. She's working at an extension campus for Uppsala University, okay, and I happen to be doing some stuff on transformative games with the Uppsala University gang, a different gang to Doris, when we discovered that Doris existed and was hiding on this lovely island called Gotland in is it the Baltic? What sea is it?
The Baltic, yeah.
It's the Baltic. So it's a rather grim place, but it's really interesting in terms of, its history and so on. So I geeked out a lot. And I've been there once before, so I took the opportunity to visit Doris. And since then, we've been talking about and developing transformative games and so on. So, Doris, you actually have a role. You're a full professor, and you're really important in that sort of part of the world. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll just go straight into the two questions, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So yes, I am a full professor now. The first and so far only in game design at the University of Uppsala. So it's like very exciting. Everybody's very excited. I'm very excited. I've been here for 3.5 years. And it's really fun to build research and education at the game design department here.
Yeah, but it's such a strange place, a funny place to me. It's so kind of isolated. But to be having, such an innovative program, or perhaps it can be innovative because you are isolated.
Yeah, I mean, the history is a bit more complicated and we don't have to go into this a lot, but it used to be not part of Uppsala University. So it was actually a its own small university, Högskolan på Gotland, and they had a games program that was started by people who not a lot of them are still actually at the department. Ernest Adams is still at the department. And then we were absorbed by Uppsala University and integrated into that bigger academic structure. And but I think it's a really, really good place for us to have a game design program because our students cannot leave. They're on the island.
Yeah, they're stuck on these islands about 3 hours by ferry from the mainland. Yeah. Okay. So that's a great way to situate you anyway. I think it's wonderful that you and I can be talking. We're so far apart and yet we're very much, I think, on the same wavelength, which is great. So, Doris, I gave you a bit of the background. This is a first-year history course looking at global citizenship in the context. It's quite evolutionarily sort of designed. It sort of grows from the Big Bang through to now. We do a lot of thinking and about, I guess, the context in which an emergent new form of global citizenship is kind of taking form or shape. Citizenship, of course, is a very political, location-based concept. It's very nation-statey and everything. But that's breaking up because, global forces are driving us in all sorts of different ways. So I'm interested in knowing what it is that you're very global. You taught in the US, you're from Austria, you're now in Sweden, you're moving around. What do you make of this concept, global citizenship? What are the skills you might associate with it?
Yeah, I'm not sure I personally have ever known anything else, having grown up all over the place and never quite felt that I am off a place or that I'm off all the places. So when I was very little, we lived in Africa And then I lived also in Germany. So first I was born in Austria, then lived in Germany, then in Africa, in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and then moved back to Austria, and then lived in the most western part of Austria, then moved to the most eastern part of Austria to study, and then moved to the US and spent a lot of years there. And now, as you said, I'm in Sweden. And it's really strange now to have conversations about cultural appropriation and also what you're supposed to, like how you are allowed or not allowed to engage culturally and what that means. And I've been thinking about this a lot. I made satay this for lunch today.
Yeah.
And it's and I grew up with that because my mom learned how to make it from Indonesian friends in Africa. And now I made it in Sweden. So it's all very mixed and for me quite natural, and at the same time really difficult sometimes to navigate what am I supposed to identify as, because I certainly do not feel like an Austrian through and through, yet that's what my passport says. My child is half American, half Austrian. My husband is Austrian. But it's just Max our kid has never been living in Austria really, yet he's half Austrian. So what does that mean? Your citizenship, where you have your nationality, your passport from, but then also the culture you grow up with and the people and what you take with you and what you feel is part of yourself and your experiences. It's very, I'm not sure I don't have an answer. I just have a lot of confusion around that.
Okay. So for you, it's actually biographical.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a lived experience.
Yeah. So we've been working on transformative games and so on. And we've been talking about them being embodied as much as we can, especially given that we're doing a lot of this stuff through medium like the Zoom medium or whatever online. Where does the body sit in all of this, and the body amongst bodies? So they're not just people, but of course, you've shown me photographs of you and Max's garden patch at different times with the flowers, or you've just dug it over. So there's a whole other dimension to belonging or to relationships with the earth and so on. Does when you start thinking global citizenship, do you go, or do you stretch out belonging to other things? I guess is what I'm talking. How relational is it?
Absolutely. I always had a very strong relationship to nature. And when we lived in Africa, my mom was horrified to find me in the bathroom bathing frogs I had found outside in the sink. She's like, get these frogs out there. But that's, to me, always so exciting. What creatures dwell where? Yeah. And one of the biggest joys of being at the beach in Tanzania were all the critters you could find there. And I was so excited. And now digging the garden patch, the flower patch with Max, he found all of these little bugs and the larvae, and he was just, what is this? And so it's like this discovery. And it's everywhere. Like you dig a hole in the dirt, in the soil, anywhere, and you're going to find critters. And that's amazing. It's amazing that we are always surrounded by this bigger than human sphere. And it's all very interconnected. And you can't just draw a line and say, here's where another country is, because the larvae don't care. They will be there, right?
They already got there before us, type thing. And of course, we're newcomers too. As a species, compared to the larvae, we're newcomers, which I always think is quite an amazing concept in itself. One of the ideas behind my thinking in this course, is what is deep time? How do we relate as temporal beings? I used to be able to gene test my DNA test 3 or 4 of the students in the course. It was a great thing until this particular study ceased. It was run by National Geo. It's called the Genome Project or something like that. It was great, and it would take you right back to your ancestral DNA of Africa, and it would show you where you went according to the DNA markers. So to me, that's very, very exciting. And so being Austrian is just a very recent thing. Being an Australian is a very recent thing. I don't have a drop of Indigenous blood in me. And when I did my DNA, and it was very much, Celtic, sort of Irish, through that sort of Brittany, the Basque area of northern Spain. And I'm sure quite likely yours might be the same, very similar. Because we're all sort of European based. That's you and I'm talking about now. As most of the students, I'm looking now at you students, okay, as most of you students. But yeah, so here you are, you're working on games, and you get very excited about it. I get excited about it. But why are games exciting? For me, I could give you a number of reasons, but I want to know what you think about this. Why are games exciting?
I think what is more exciting to me than games is actually play. Play is a mode of being, not necessarily an activity, because from the outside we don't really recognize play. We recognize play only from the inside as a mental state, as an emotional state, a state of being. And I think it's the most wholesome, integrative, healthy state we can be in. I'm a strong advocate for play, and I'm fascinated by games, and I'm excited about games because I see a lot of potential to facilitate embodied experiences. And by that, I mean that we learn through acting upon a world, and then the world responds back to us, and we learn through the consequences to our actions in a really firsthand kind of way, as we do in real life. That's very exciting potential. Yet it's a very virtual, in many cases, a very virtual embodied way of engaging with a game, because you don't really take your physical body with you. It's all a projection. If you play a screen-based game, it's very much a projection of your body into that space, onto an avatar or onto just a placeholder. And so I'm super, super intrigued, but also frustrated, but that's the source of innovation, I guess, what we could do to facilitate actual playful experiences. Because a lot of games, even though we say we play them, are not very playful. Like, we're not being very playful. We're often being very competitive or combative or destructive. And I'm not bashing games. All of that has its place and whatnot. But where is the actual playfulness in the game? And I think, to me, the capability of playing well together is a core skill of global citizenship. We need to be able to play well together. So I'm fascinated by how can we design for this, facilitate that, and then also, when you talk about the interconnectedness and also to a bigger sphere than the human sphere, our bodies play a key role in that. We've moved very much into our heads and just being these brains that need to be highly executive functioning. What happens when we are more present? What happens when we are more embodied, more physical, more aware, pay more attention to that state, more immediate? And how does that shape our relationships and our connections and our perceptions of those around us, the way we negotiate, the way we solve conflict, the way we see ourselves as related? So that's what drives me when I think about games and games of the future, and how games can also contribute to a positive future.
And I don't know if you know, but I did that book on phenomenology of grace.
I love that book.
and much of that is built around play, not games, but actual play, because I work with a system called Interplay and so on, which is just absolutely stunning. And now that COVID's sort of going away, I'm going to go back and play in that space because I need to play more. I noticed that play actually changes my whole chemistry. You know, it does something to the brain, and it really does something powerful when we start thinking about play in terms of transformative futures of some kind, which is what what you and I are working on at the moment. But the thing interesting in our culture is that we've infantilized play. We've made it something that children play, and then you grow up, and then the rest of your life you spend miserable or locked in the avatars on a screen doing stuff like that, and you know, or it becomes competitive like soccer or football or rugby or gridiron from the States or whatever it might be. Or, you know, so we have actually diminished what it means to play. And I have to say that when I do my interplay work, I feel more hopeful. What gives you hope? What makes you hopeful, you know? An example would be great, Doris.
It makes me, well, being able to contribute creatively to my immediate environment makes me very hopeful. It gives me a sense of agency. There's something I can do. And by regulating my own self through play, through making it a priority in my life that I play, that whatever I approach, I do playfully and creatively, helps me also, I think it helps me regulate the energies around me also. I experience that it has a calming or like a positive influence when I enter a classroom, for example. But mostly it gives me hope when I engage with my kid, with Max. And I realized that he hasn't been, his creativity and capacity for innovation and problem solving that is unique to him and is coming out of him has not been educated out of him. And I hope it never will be. I just had this conversation with my husband over lunch, and I said, you know, because my husband said, Max is not so into games and points and scoring and all of that. He actually gets quite bored. And I said, great, I love that, please. Because that is how we are used to put everything we do, every action into an objective, measuring our progress towards that. These are the boxes, like the excelling by the Excel sheet, the living by the Excel sheet. And I've suffered through this through my academic training. I see students suffer through this. I see my colleagues suffer through this, and it doesn't make us better. It makes us mediocre if we submit to these systems, because
pay attention, students. This is so true. You're talking to my first year students. You've got to resist, you guys. But it's very true. Now, I'm glad you brought in your son, because my son's very much the same, though he's 10 years older than Max, I'd say, something like that. Do you play with Max yourself?
We play a lot.
Good.
But we don't play video games.
No, I wasn't expecting you to.
No, we play all the time. Like, you see, he has an incredibly alive imagination and fantasy life, and he is an almost never-ending stream of dialogue from some imaginary movie that's running in his head. And I just ask a lot of questions around that. So I just try to link in.
Vulcan mind meld, you know, that thing, that Star Trek, Okay.
Yeah. And in the beginning, it's like, this is kind of boring, and that because I didn't understand it, and it's also inspired from all sorts of TV series that I watch with him, but I'm like kind of meh. But then really following what he thinks about it and why that's interesting and what he's taking away from this and how that inspires him has made it like this kind of paying attention has allowed me to really be with him in a playful way, rather than just mom is dutifully going along because she's been told she needs to spend time with her kid to be a good mother.
Yeah. No, I get that. So, I mean, in my world, my son gives me hope as much as anything. You know, there's a generation of people who can resist. And of course, I'm talking to my students, Doris. This is really the key, that we learn either to conform or we find ways around that so that we hack whatever system we happen to be in. Doris, you hack the system to get the transformative game stuff happening and so on. Hacking is a key ingredient, I think, to meaningful life. For me, that's really important. And I get inspired when I talk to you, Doris, because you live that world. You live that hacker mentality. So is there any?
Put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I know that we have to. I know we have to stop in a moment. So what is there? I'll let you have the last words. So what we've covered global citizenship. We've looked at games and play, and we've looked at hope. Where do you end up after a short little conversation like this? What has it sparked for you?
It gives me tremendous hope that you are sharing this with students, and students generally give me tremendous hope, because they're the ones, right, that are going to go out there, and I really hope that they do what they feel they need to do for themselves to have a positive impact on their lives, their environment, their world. Yeah. It's just such a joy that this is happening, and thank you, Marcus, for taking the time to talk to me and let me be part of it.
I'm very grateful, because to me, I get to talk to really great people like you. I get to turn these things into mini YouTubey things and share them with the students. Who knows how many of the students watch them, but it's cumulative. So thank you so much. We'll stop there, Doris, and I'll let you go back to eating satay or whatever you were doing.